bring our pre-commission meeting to order at 8:01 a.m. Let's look at our consent agenda. Are there any updates or additional input regarding the minutes? Consent agenda? And any questions regarding the voting machine for surplus and auction? All right, so everybody's good with that. Looking at our old business, this be revising the city ordinances related to cross connection and backflow prevention. I think that's pretty straightforward. So it's our final reading, so we'll vote on that at that time. Any questions on that one?
Are they, you all still get any calls about backflow? Or you still get any calls?
All right, moving on to new business. We'll hold number 11 for last and just go through the other ones now. Let's look at number 12, discussion and possible approval of resolution to obligate funds received under the American Rescue Plan Act. Finance.
I did prepare a resolution, but there isn't one in this package, so I'll make sure I send it to you.
We'll make sure it gets in there. Yep.
What is it?
It is what it does is obligate the ARPA money that you had previously obligated to 4 stormwater projects. We are obligating specifically to repayment or pay off of the 17th Street ditch note. And then all of the remaining funds will just go to the stormwater department for miscellaneous projects. Because you have to use it by December 31st, 2026, the 4 projects that are currently obligated will be finished by then. So the Finance Committee has recommended using that money, re-obligating those ARPA funds for this purpose.
So how much money will be left over after we pay the 17th Street pitch?
Close to $500,000. There's currently $4,900,000 available. The money is in a separate bank account. It earns about $20,000 in interest every month. So I can't give you an exact number, but as Ms. Meyer said, we want to move the entire balance into the stormwater department, pay off the 17th Street ditch note, which is at about 4.4, I think, and then the balance will just revitalize the cash flow. Stormwater department is in a negative cash position right now of about $1 million, which is 5.5 months worth of money.
We received the first assessment from,
It was $212,000.
so we haven't received all the assessments from the tax collector. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, any other questions on that?
I have a question. Was there 2 pots of money paying for the 17th Street? And maybe I'm showing my ignorance here. Wasn't there surtax money paying for 17th Street? No. What was that paying for? What road?
The surtax money pays primarily for paving. There are some other projects that are being paid for by surtax, but primarily we use that for paving.
We paved 17th Street, one of the last projects, so that's probably where the confusion came from. That was part of the appropriation of us paving 17th Street.
Any other questions on that one? All right, move on to number 13, possible approval of the resolution in the City of Lynn Haven's Finance Review Ad Hoc Committee. Any questions on that one? We discussed it a couple of times. All right, number 14, discussion of possible approval for the budget adjustment for fiscal year 24-25.
Chris, would you come up and tell what your projects are for the budget, and then Bobby will come up and talk about his as well.
So for the budget resolution, that will cover the next few items on the agenda for the sewer machine, the jetter trailer, the west side outfall, engineering study that also cleans up some money that we're gonna approve the well 3 raw water line. We had $250,000 in the budget. We're shifting some money in the water budget to cover the extra $56,000 that project is going to cost. So it's budget neutral in the water department. Sewer, we're using some money from reserves to pay for that jetter trailer. We also have the 9th Street turn lanes that we're adding to the budget, and then a bunch of cleanup rollovers from last year. And then it will cover the difference here in the ARPA to utilize that money. I think that's all of our projects.
So does this increase our budget by 1.1 million then? Yes. You have enough money for that?
Whereas you see, some of those are carryover from last year that we did not have enough funds, am I correct, designated for this year.
But some of those carryover funds, according to this item on the budget, is significant. One's like 300,000, one's like
So
400 and something
That's
thousand.
just because of the amount of work that was completed prior to the
Correct.
last fiscal year ending. For example, the parking lot out here, American Sand didn't invoice many invoices before the budget ended. And so that rolled over, as well as the paving. CW showed up, they started work, and then they kind of went stagnant, and then right at the end, they did it all at one time.
So this was budgeted for the prior fiscal year?
Correct, and rolling over. The only ones that were not budgeted were the water projects. That was this fiscal year. This jetter trailer was not. It was added in this budget resolution for this fiscal year, and then the additional
That wasn't budgeted.
the additional money for Stantec for the stormwater, and then our 9th Street and Ohio intersection. We had the money last year for the planning, but we didn't put the money for the construction this fiscal year. So we're adding that as part of this resolution.
So I guess my question is that rollover money, is that why when you look at I think it's page 38 on ours, when it shows the citywide total, the change from the approved to the proposed now is much less than the 1.1. It's like 400,000.
Because some of it is coming out of reserves.
Okay.
So there's a differential there.
All right.
Any additional questions on number 14?
And does everyone know what the 9th Street project is? I don't think we talked about that. Bobby, would you come in and give an update on that project?
The
That
Ninth
actually
Street
been working on for
project is
years.
right here at this intersection, and it is to create turn lanes. So there'll be 2 lanes on the east side and the west side, designated lanes.
Good.
We had to work with DOT to.
Officially, yeah, everybody does it, but
Yeah.
it really creates
But you almost run into each other.
Right.
and
creates a
this-
lot of accidents out there, so it's gonna define it much better.
Yeah.
And the FDOT finally approved that to happen.
Yes,
We've been
so
going-
it's already been engineered, this is the construction dollars, and it's ready to go to bid once this is approved, so.
All right, any other questions? Moving on to number 15, discussion of possible approval to authorize staff to trade an asset. Any questions for that one?
This is a sewing machine?
No, it's a sewer machine. This
Oh,
is the
it just
trailer.
said SEW.
Right, so when they used to create asset numbers, quite odd.
Okay.
But it is, it goes in a sewer lateral, if you have a clog and it jets it out. The one we have is purchased in 2007. It's just reached its end of life. It needs about $30,000 worth of repairs. They're going to give us a $7,500 trade-in value, and then we'll purchase a new one. And it costs anywhere from $800 to $1,600 if we have to call a company to do this. It's a fancy sewing machine.
Okay.
Moving on to number 16. Authorize the manager to sign a task order with Newberry Engineers to serve and analyze Main Avenue, Maryland Avenue, and 19th Street. 14th Street for additional stormwater outfalls.
And this one is, we've talked about for several years as part of the adding to our stormwater master plan. There's been, I think, 3 to 5 homes that have or been documented that they flooded over the past few years. This project is just to study and analyze how many outfalls we can add in the North Ridge area, which is from Main Avenue to Maryland, and then from 19th to 14th Street. And so Dewberry will come in, they'll survey all of that area, and then they'll analyze where we can put the outfalls. And then we'll bring it back hopefully for a task order next fiscal year to design and then to construct it. And it's likely about a $5 million construction project.
So outfalls, some outfalls are man-made, or are they all man-made?
So there are some natural ones that have been there for years.
Yeah.
But back in 2020, we added an outfall that goes down 15th Street. It collects at Vermont Avenue, and then it goes through the unimproved right-of-way of 15th and dumps out into that bayou there. There's an outfall at 19th in Rhode Island, and then there's another outfall at the end of Vermont Avenue, the very north end at 11th Street, dumps out there. And that's really all of the outfalls that are in that area. You have some that drain down Maryland to 14th to North Shore and then kind of make their way out. But there really needs more outfalls for the amount of stormwater that's collected through there. That subdivision was built with no curbs, no gutters, and hardly any stormwater infrastructure during that time.
Is this the one that'll solve problems that Mr. Carr was having?
It's the one that we hope will solve the problems that Mr. Carr
It's
had.
right there near his name.
Correct.
Does EPA ever give you a problem about making these man-made outfalls?
Potentially, yes. And part of the legislative stormwater project that we have that's in the core permitting, we're on our 4th RFI, I believe. So yes, they may say you're not putting an outfall here, or you may have to provide some more adequate treatment or something. So we won't know that until we get into the permitting phase.
Any other questions on that one? All right, 17, discussion and possible approval to award the bid for the Well 3 Raw Water Main to CW Roberts. Any questions on that one? All right, number 18, application for amendment to development order, North Bay Haven Charter Academy.
They want to build another batting cage.
Yes.
You just give us some highlights on it.
Sorry?
Yeah, if you could give us a few highlights.
Okay. So in 2018, they got their development order for their athletic fields, and they were also going to build a field house with lots of bits and pieces in there. They hadn't by last year, they'd put all the athletic fields in, the infrastructure and everything, but they had not constructed their field house. And so they approached the city and asked if, they said they weren't going to do the field house, could they put a batting cage? And, the difference in the impervious is huge. I mean, the field house is so much bigger than a batting cage. So we had said if they give us a letter stating they're definitely not going to do the field house, then they could go ahead and do the batting cage. So that's what happened. We got a letter from Larry Bollinger saying they weren't going to do field house. They constructed their batting cage. Well, now they've come back and they want another batting cage. So we're like, whoa, hold on a minute. So we don't know, how far this could go. What they're not going to do the field house, but how much extra are they going to say that they want to make up that impervious? So I felt like I wasn't comfortable saying go ahead without bringing it to you, so that that original development order they are amending it, so that we've got that in the record, we've got it in the file, and also you make the decision on whether you want to allow them to do that or not.
All right, any additional questions? Thank you. I guess just hold on 1 second. We got number 19, application order for development order 826 Florida Avenue. If you give us a highlight of that, please.
So this is Jared Noyes and his wife. They bought that house across from Victoria's Last Bite that used to be a beautiful building. Used to be split up, though, into apartments and offices inside, and had also, over the years with the previous owners, been built onto the back without permits. There was a not very good structure, like a pole barn thing built on the back of it. So when Jared Noyes bought the property, he took that down, and he would like to put a new structure up on the back. But then he came to us and realized he was going to have to apply for a development order in order to do all that. He bought the little property next to him, the little strip next to him for parking, just a little narrow. So there's two parcels. He has submitted the development order. In the process of going through the engineering, his engineers realized there was no way he was going to be able to meet the stormwater requirements that we have. The parcel just isn't big enough. But he was saying, well, you know, there was a big building on there, and I just want to put back what was on there, but better, and make it nice. And he wants to put the Slice House people that are downtown, the Pizza Slice House, want to go in there, and also Wild Root would like to go in there. So we took it to the Board of Adjustments because they said they could get or apply for a state exemption on the stormwater. It was just our portion of what we required. And so he took it to the Board of Adjustments for a variance on it, and the Board of Adjustments granted the variance, so he does not have to meet our stormwater requirements. And he has applied for his exemption. It went to the Planning Commission on Tuesday, and they voted unanimously for approval. So now it is coming to you. And if you have any questions regarding the exemption, then Chris can answer the stormwater questions for you.
So even if we approve it, it has to go to the state?
No, we cannot hold up a development order pending state permits. So you go ahead and do what you're going to do, approve it or deny it. And then if he were not to get his permit but construct it and he didn't get his permit, the state would take him to task.
But he still has to get approval from the state, right?
Yes,
So
he has to get exemption.
once we approve it, if we do approve it, then he has to go to the state.
Yes. And he's applied to the state. I don't know how long that'll take, though. We don't know how long it.
It could take, they could get it next week, or it could be June. Never really know.
Is there any stormwater problems over there?
No, sir, we haven't had any issues in that area. It all flows pretty well. Never had any standing water in the roadways or any buildings to my knowledge.
So you don't foresee it being a problem, stormwater?
No, sir.
Environment? Okay.
And I
Thanks.
also wanted to add that we require a hard dust-free surface, as you know, for parking. But if a street isn't going to be ours, then, or the driveway isn't going to be ours, they don't have to meet our technical standards. So where his parking is along the side, he's actually using pervious pavers. So it'll be hard, but the water, and they're more expensive, the water will drain down through. He's using concrete for the handicap, but he has to keep the driveway gravel because otherwise he can't meet our impervious surface requirements. So they have really put their heads together and thought about it and tried to do it to meet our requirements as best as they can. So yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, any other questions on that one? Going back to,
I have a question about the warrant list.
okay,
Just some of the expenses. You know, I have a habit of zeroing in on large amounts, so the Regions Bank, I assume that's a payment for loans.
It's a bond payment, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And there's insurance, RDK Assets Incorporated.
That was the knuckle boom trucks,
The what?
the knuckle booms.
the trucks we approved,
Yeah. I didn't hear the knuckle part. American Sand, we're still getting, what, to do this out here?
Yes, ma'am.
Exxon Enterprises,
Exxon Enterprises. How far down? Oh,
Midway.
those are police tasers.
That was budgeted.
It was,
Tasers.
yes.
It was.
Man, tasers are expensive.
That's 27 of them.
Good lord.
you want me to work?
Oh, yeah, of course. They said no clue.
Yeah, don't want them to malfunction.
There's 2 to American sand. That's a lot of sand. But I imagine we put a lot of sand out there.
This is the limit.
Okay, Green South Solutions, you've told me that before.
$189,000 for the pond liner, and the rest, I believe, was sludge removal.
Monthly sludge haul. The 189 is to close out that pond project.
And Garber Fleet,
That was a water truck and a sewer truck.
Are they doing the sludge hauling the, are we hacking it or whatever?
The water is, we got a new polymer machine last month, and so it's, the synergy is running about 3 days a week now.
and you estimate that to save us some money, so we don't have to haul off the sludge?
Hopefully, we will have a better estimate on that after we establish a better run schedule.
Yeah.
And can differentiate between the liquid and the cake.
All right. I do have another question, or should I wait till it kind of has something to do with this, but can then kind of not?
Go ahead.
Okay. The mayor's going, oh, no, not another question from Brenda Griff. It's just something I don't understand. Okay. When something's an emergency and we have to spend money, okay, and it might be higher than the 35,000, okay? It's when we hear about it, it's here for the warrant list.
No, normally we will bring that to you after we have done that. Say if it happens over a weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
we
I mean, I know the
yeah.
emergencies.
Yeah.
I just want to understand the process.
Yes. Yeah. When we have those, we bring that to you to let you know, hey, we had to go in and give them that okay to do it. And it was over this amount.
But they're still not getting paid until we approve it.
That's
because
exactly
it comes to you. So we're typically only paid twice a month is when we get our warrant list. So that over weekend emergency will still come to us for approval.
Before the check is actually written.
Yes. That's the process supposed to be, yes.
Okay. Just wondered.
All right, going back to agenda item number 11, resolution for approving the second amendment of the city manager agreement. City attorney.
This is my item. This is something I initiated. It does 5 things. 3 of them are housekeeping and 2 of them are just sort of while we're here, could we consider? The items that I consider to be housekeeping that I initiated are B, C, and D regarding compensation issues specifically. So in B regarding the salary, right now Vicky's entitled to any COLA increases that are given to other employees generally. I understand you have several employee policies that apply to exempt or salaried employees, and I wanted to make clear here, if it was the commission's intent, that she be similarly entitled to those overtime and holiday pay at the same time and manner as given to those exempt city employee as an exempt city employee currently in your policies. That's how staff is interpreting it. I think that's a reasonable interpretation, but it would make it clear in this contract that she is intended to be included in that class of employees in those policies. That's the effect of this change. And C, hours of work. You'll notice that she is expected to give a 40-hour work week with municipal holidays accepted. This past year, you initiated a new event with the MLK event, which Vicky spent a lot of time and effort organizing and working the day of. Because holidays are specifically exempted from the work she is intended to do, I'm trying to close that gap here by acknowledging for hours work by Vicky on municipal holidays, she'll be entitled to receive compensation.
If I guess for clarity for the commission, I believe we've already approved that. We just didn't have it in.
Right. So you have, for Martin Luther King specifically, you did approve, a majority of you approved additional compensation to her. So this will sort of ratify for all future holidays she may work. an action you have already taken specific to MLK Day this year. So it's based on an action you have already taken and sort of extending it to all municipal holidays she may work. But for all future MLKs, there won't have to be a separate correspondence to each of you asking, is this okay? D has to do with the car allowance. It's my understanding that during the 2024 budget year, y'all approved an increase to her car allowance that went from wherever she was to 750. I will say that this contract says 450. The piece of paper I had with the personnel change actually indicated that you were getting at 375. So I don't know if y'all were underpaying her for the first several years of her contract, and that this catches it up. I don't know, but I will say that this ratifies a $750 increase, I believe was effective in October of 2024 with that budget year.
Got it. So again, that's something we've already approved, just clarifying it within the contract.
That's correct. That has already been approved by the commission. And then benefit plans, A and E are two requests while we're here that we're asking for. And let me say too, these are all housekeeping things. None of these are necessary, and Vicki isn't providing the energy for this. This is just a housekeeping matter. So if it doesn't go anywhere, there's nothing fatal about that. It gives me some predictability, and it gives all future city managers and staff some predictability, particularly with compensation. Section A term. Right now, Vicki's employment agreement terminates January 13th, 2027. She has indicated that her 10-year work anniversary is April 2027. So she has asked for an extension that would get her past that April date. I put December, this was my date, just to get through the end of the calendar year. That seemed cleanest. But again, there's nothing hard and fast about that December date. If you want to make it May or any time after April, that would suit Vicki's needs to get to her 10-year anniversary. Similarly, with retirement in mind, Section E has to do with the calculation of her retirement benefit. When she first negotiated this contract, she asked for an accelerated vesting in the general employees pension program, and the commission agreed to consider an ordinance to accelerate that vesting. The commission did ultimately approve that ordinance. The flip side of that has to do with the calculator. And Vicki, you may have to jump in here if I say it wrong. But the way that her retirement benefit is calculated, I believe, is still on a 10-year horizon, or at least a horizon that doesn't match the accelerated vesting she now enjoys as a 100% vested employee at the 5-year mark. So she is requesting that the commission consider an ordinance that corrects that disconnect between I'm already fully vested and yet my retirement benefit is still being calculated as if I were not on the 10-year schedule that most general employees are. This would be specific to the city manager position, and it would be a change if you adopt this ordinance, one that I hope your pension attorney, I'm going to recommend, do, and not me, so that it gets done correctly. But it'll apply for all future people who hold that city manager position. From my perspective, this is a fairly common thing to do, given the volatility of a city manager position. But until cities get it in place, it does require somebody to affirmatively ask for it and negotiate for it. So that is why that is here. If you don't do it, that's fine. You should expect, though, the next city manager to ask again when we get to that point. So.
Got it. So if I'm hearing you, A, B, C, D, and E, A and E are really the new things that we're considering, and B, C, and D, some way, somehow have already been approved by the commission, though it just wasn't updated.
C and D reflect actions that have already been taken by the commission.
Right.
B, to a lesser extent, you've already adopted policies for predictability for myself and for staff. Just having the commission and confirm their intention that she be included in that class of employees, I think would be helpful.
Got it. Are there any questions about A? Anything we want to discuss about A?
Sense to me.
Yeah, I think one of the things that does help by extending it to January, extending it from January to December, allow that time to have a thorough search be able to be done, and that person doesn't necessarily have to come in on the heels of something, but actually haven't given us time to be able to search out for that person.
That's true.
So I think that helps in that transition. And with E, there's been discussion with E. Not saying we can't discuss the other ones, but those are actions we've basically already have taken. Any discussion on E?
I don't quite understand. So right now at 5 year, she's not getting the percentage that she should be getting if it was a 10 year?
So we're gonna ask Jennifer if you come up and
Okay, you don't want to, Vicky wants to stay out of it.
I just don't understand.
Pension calculations have, they have calculations, and they have what's called a multiplier. All pension calculations will have an average salary typically, times a multiplier, times years of service. While the 5 years provided vesting, it didn't take into account any, the intent was that that would be calculated as if having 10 years. By law, you can't just add years. What you do is you adjust the multiplier. So take, for example, the state pension. There's actually classifications that have different multipliers. A general employee has a 2.5 multiplier. Middle management has a 3, senior management has 3.5, and then elected constitutional officers will have a 6 or higher multiplier. That's what adjusts the percentage that that individual will have as a pension. And you can take it like this. 3% is typically, a 3% multiplier means once you're vested and you have all your years of service, you're looking at getting about 33% of your full salary. So that multiplier does impact the outcome of a pension. I did a review of the state pensions, and there are, for example, Panama City has different classes and different multipliers for their employees. I would recommend for the city manager, certainly for recruitment, you're going to have to look at that multiplier because they understand that their longevity, a typical city manager is going to work anywhere from 4 to 8 years, 5 to 7 years, depending on a term of the boards. It is accepted in this industry that you're going to move. Therefore, they're going to negotiate being able to get that pension, one, be vested and add a higher multiplier because of the volatility of the position. So I started making discussions when I was involved in looking at the contract and talking with Amy. I said the problem was that the multiplier was never addressed. And the multiplier, it would be my recommendation to address the multiplier. Currently, we're at 3%, and I think a good multiplier would be 4%.
And I think what we're voting on today, well, not voting on today, what we're discussing today is that we would basically give room to say an ordinance can be created to adjust the multiplier. So we're not going to vote Tuesday to say we're adjusting the multiplier because it have to go to the pension.
That's correct. It does not bind the city at all.
Right. So we're just saying, hey, yes, we would like to see an ordinance come back for us to consider what that multiplier would be, but we're not voting on a particular ordinance when we say yes to this.
Okay.
And what I would recommend to dovetail on the mayor is it's for the position, not the person.
Right.
That this would go forward to anyone who steps into the city manager role, that would be the multiplier that they would have.
And the commission has the authority to set the multiplier?
Mm-hmm.
It's a policy decision, ultimately, yeah.
That would make every future city manager vested at 5 years.
Yes.
And is that a standard?
That's currently
for
how
any-
the ordinance reads.
I mean, does that
I
happen
believe.
with all city managers?
I don't know that all do. I can confirm in Panama City Beach, we amended the vesting schedule to create something new for the city manager, city manager and the assistant city manager. We may have done it for the city clerk too. I can't recall. But the charter officers, we did create a new class for them. So it's not uncommon.
By the way, some cities pay completely for all the pension for their top level person, and then a second retirement as well. So
So what's the multiplier for a
Thought you would call a
10-year
bunch
top
of
level?
cities.
Here, we're all the same,
Have you done some
3%.
work?
Oh,
So it's
I
flat.
see that upside down.
There's no
slump.
variation
He's got empirical data in his
between
head.
the exempts and the non-exempts. So we're a flat pension in that sense. And when it does go to the pension, we ask for reviews from the actuarials so that you all see what the impact would be. It's not just writing a legal statement, but we're going to review and see how it works with the pension and what the impact would be.
And ask Commissioner Ward if he's done some investigation.
So from my understanding in the past, city managers in the past didn't fall under the general employees retirement pension fund. It was done differently. That's my understanding. So keep in mind, whatever is determined with this comes out of the pension fund, which affects all the other employees. Affects the pension fund, our pension fund. From my understanding, it wasn't done like that in the past. So it kind of worries me. Make sure that our fund stays healthy.
Is that something that other cities do too?
Again, I can speak specifically to Panama City Beach. The city manager is paid out of the general employees retirement fund and always has. So, in our area municipalities, they are all part of the pension. By the way, our pensions are in very good position. Our general fund is funded at 91%. Police fund is over 100%, and the fire funding is 96%. 107. So we have extremely healthy pensions in a very healthy pension state. Very favorable laws for pensions.
what's the 91%?
General fund, our largest.
And again, we won't be making that determination Tuesday, just saying that we will consider the possibility or giving possibility that those things could be considered. And so that would have to be another discussion or ordinance for that to determine specifically what the multiplier would be for that.
Can I give you the exact numbers since you're asking? We had the pension meetings yesterday. The fire department is at 96.6. The police are at 107.9 and general is at 91.2.
Thank you.
One of the things that to note also, although the full contract is not in here, I did review that prior to our commission meeting. One of the things that the contract states is that there should be an annual, paraphrasing, there should be an annual review and consideration for the increase in salary. That has not happened since I've been the mayor. To have that discussion for annual review as well as increase in salary. We did, I know about a couple of years ago, I did speak with Ms. Jennifer about this and organizing some evaluation process. So after a year of considering how to organize that evaluation process, because I did not think the previous way that it was done was that shouldn't be the standard by which it should be conducted. So we this past year did conduct an evaluation. However, we didn't get a chance to follow through on the actual discussion of that. And so I did ask her to prepare some numbers for us to consider, since we're already talking about salary adjustment or contract adjustments, that it would be something for us to consider at this time as well, is adjusting the base salary for our city manager to get her more current and comparable to what other city managers are making in like-sized cities locally and beyond. So,
Sure. As background, a year ago, you all participated in a performance evaluation process individually, and we met, you each met individually with the city manager and myself with the outcome. That was a 5-point scale, if you remember. You gave comments, you did some ratings.
The range of scores on a 5-point scale, with 1 being the weakest up to 5 being the strongest or excellent, went from 4.2 to 5.0 with an average of 4.625, which would be in the higher or excellent range. The contract does address the fact that the commission is supposed to do an annual evaluation and shall consider a merit for the city manager. And again, that has not been done since the December of 2020, when this commission, upon motion by Commissioner Aldridge, adjusted the base salary. Based on that, I did some comparative studies of our city managers locally. I also looked statewide. However, when you go out to the statewide comparison, you're just not comparing apples to oranges. It's nuts, and it's all different. They all have contracted agreements which have various benefits, issues, etc. I did look at 20 cities that were equal in or close to the same population, either a little bit more or a little bit less, that had budgets about the same, a little bit more, a little bit less, and had services nearly the same. And the range for the city manager from those 20, if I can trust the self-reporting of the League of Cities study, would be anywhere from 159,000 to 278,000. The higher amounts, of course, are more South Florida. The Keys, for example, it's very, very high salary that the cost of living doesn't equate to our area here. I do have some handouts, and we can go over them.
No pass vote.
And in summary, the previous city manager, upon resignation, was at a salary in 2019 of over 147,000, received a severance package, also had a car allowance of $750 a month, received a medical benefit allowance of $629, and also a phone allowance of $50 a month. So that gives you what was previously handled by the city. I took the assumption on the first page that's lost salary, or let's first, we can look at our chart that has the blue heading that shows the current city managers and their annual salaries and any other benefits for Panama City Beach, Callaway, Destin, and then Lynn Haven. You see the population, you see the annual salaries, their benefits, then if there's any paid insurances, and how they contribute to retirement. If it's left blank, it's because they didn't respond to the request. I do want to point out in Destin, the 200,000, he's a new city manager that's guaranteed for 2 years, and then 3, 4, and 5, his salary goes up to 225,000 per contract. And PCB, the latest I have for the beach was this summer before COLA. So I would expect that amount for the city manager with the beach at 197,205 would be higher upon receiving a COLA.
And then with Panama City, that's actually a new city manager.
Yes, right at, I'm not even sure if he's at a year yet. So that's to ponder. Then the next document is lost salary due to no merit consideration. So I took the assumption that if the commission considered merit and did evaluations each year after the adjustment made in December of 2020, 21, when the salary was put at 140, I've added COLA and then a merit. A plausible merit target would be 5%. You see then after the multiple years, the difference between where the salary would be and where the city manager is today. This takes a lot of assumptions. I'm just trying to give you the picture of where we are today and where it could be today for discussion.
So what are we thinking?
So when was the last time we filled out feedbacks, and when did we go over those feedbacks?
It was a year ago. You all filled it out in November and December of 2023. We reviewed it in January of 2024.
We reviewed it as a group or
No,
that's when
individually.
we did the individual?
Yeah,
Okay.
in the huddle room.
And that's required every year?
By contract, it talks about doing, it has a shall statement, and I think, Amy, you've got the
I
contract?
don't have the entire contract here.
Okay, I do.
While we're talking about that, can we talk about city commissioners' pay?
Yeah,
I'm kidding. It's
that's-
LOL.
yeah, that's, we actually
Apparently people don't understand my sense of humor.
get an increase. We're on COLA. So that's our increase.
That's bring that correct. File.
Nobody picked up on running with that.
Yeah, a review and evaluation shall be conducted annually in advance of adoption of the annual budget. Should, so it does contemplate an annual review.
So according to the contract, we're supposed to do it before we approve the budget, which is in what month?
Usually September. And I think the intent of that is because if there's going to be a change complicated,
Sure, yeah.
thought about, excuse me, it would be added to the budget. It would be incorporated into the next year's budget.
If we do go with your suggestion and increase by 15%, how does that impact our budget?
Then I would get with the finance director to see where available funds are in HR that might be able to cover that increase. This increase would only be for, depending on how it's written, because Amy, I know you have a nut pro tunc there.
Yeah,
It could be for the whole year, so there could be a retro payback to October 1st. But that amount then would be incorporated into next budget's process.
So we won't necessarily have to come back to increase the budget itself if you're able to find funds with.
I always have to look at my finance person. I don't know how much we can transfer.
My quick math in my head, 15% of her current salary would be about 24,000. And we would have to amend the budget.
All right. So, so again, we have not considered an increase. Conducted our evaluation in January. We got the update from HR on what the score was on that. Basically, high to excellent. What are we thinking in regards to what has been recommended to us relating to increasing by 15% the base salary?
Is this on the agenda? Is this part of that? The 5 things, or is this something totally not on the agenda yet?
I didn't have any salary adjustments on my proposed agenda item, so this is new. But if you have an appetite to do it, I can certainly insert it in there.
Yeah, it falls under, since we're adjusting, it would just fall under number 11, since because we're discussing the contract, so.
That-
Also, under B, it says 143, 499, should it say 158?
It could. I didn't adjust that,
324.
because that 158, I believe, is a function of COLA increases that are already contemplated. So I didn't understand that to require an annual adjustment to her contract every time you made that COLA
I see.
increase. If you were adjusting her base salary, again, on which all future COLAs will be based, then we do need to change that number.
So the 143 is the base, the 158 is with COLA.
Since that 143 was adopted, yeah.
What's Panama City's budget? Much higher than ours? About Callaway's?
It's lower. And number of employees are much lower, and they also don't provide police service anymore.
Yeah,
It's contracted out.
I was just thinking, and, you know, that the superintendent of schools makes like 115,000. He's got 3,000 employees, and his budget is 600 million.
I don't think that's a correct salary for Superintendent McQueen.
Okay. You think he makes more than
Yes, ma'am.
115? 120?
Oh, I think much more than that.
I think, don't quote me on this, I want to say it's almost 200,000.
Exactly.
180. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's in excess of 200,000.
That's crazy because he does the whole district. And I'm not trying to go off on a tangent, but where I'm from, we don't have school districts. And so I live in a small town. Just that one school superintendent for that little school makes like $240,000. That's New York for you, though.
Yeah, yeah. I was just, you know, trying to think about Bay County in general.
So Bay
Okay.
County in general, she's still the lowest paid city manager.
I can read, thank you.
I didn't say you couldn't, but I'm saying if we're talking about Bay County in general,
Yeah,
she's still the lowest paid. So she's the lowest paid, but however, with Bay County in general, we have the number one city, and that's not us stating that. That's what surveys say, that we have the number one city, and also we have the number two safest city per capita for the state of Florida. She's basically doing all the things that we've asked her to do as a commission and as a city. So we have our reserves, we're getting out of our debt. So she's done the work that she's supposed to be doing as a city manager. Our stormwater's on track, so
Stormwater's broke.
well, I'm saying in regards to repairing stormwater in our city. And part of the reason stormwater is broke is because we've been paying that 17th Street ditch, which we're going to pay off, which would then increase our reserves for stormwater. Any additional thoughts on this?
Well, I do want to say thanks for getting us all the data, because that helps.
You're welcome. It's always difficult to talk salaries. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. It's tough to talk about salaries, especially when the individual's sitting right there. But from an HR perspective, it needs to be done and needs to be evaluated and reevaluated. You all need to think in the future, at some point, the city manager will step out and retire. So what is the package going to look like going forward? I guarantee you it's going to be much higher than where she's at today in order to get someone qualified to come in.
Right.
We experience that in other positions where we're in a niche world of municipal employees. We could jump over and cross over to different industries and make more money. We do it because we love being public servants. But at some point, there still is a reason to evaluate and look at positions that need to be in leadership for that city.
Can we get a copy of all the other contract benefit packages from all the, well, I can't say all, but as far back as we can go from past city managers?
I can certainly look at it. I've got contracts from the other municipalities as well, so I can provide that as a packet. I don't know if they've been updated. My packets were probably from a year ago of getting contracts.
Yeah, just.
And I'm
that-
not sure if they had contracts. Did they all work under employee? I'll be happy to do some research on that. I do have Michael White's contract.
Any other requests from HR? All right, any other discussion on this?
We're gonna go over D or,
What would you like to discuss from D?
so. Mr. Vandegrift, did you know that we voted on the car allowance? Were you aware of that?
Well, I have to admit that my memory's not as sharp as it used to be. I don't recall, to be perfectly
Peoples?
honest.
Well, I remember seeing it in the budget.
I don't remember seeing, I mean, you probably, but you remember us discussing the car allowance and voting on
Yeah,
it?
actually, Kevin brought that to us.
I don't remember discussing it.
Yeah, Kevin brought it to us. What we're having is Kevin brought it to us, but it was not updated in the contract. So he brought us the car allowance, we discussed it, we voted on it, we updated it, but he did not update the contract. So that's the housekeeping that Amy's referring to is, we've already voted on it. We just,
So we voted just on the car allowance.
yeah, we voted on the car allowance.
When was that?
I don't remember, Commissioner Ward, the exact date.
I just don't remember voting on it.
Can you look at the past minutes to see when if you could do a Google search on that?
I don't remember.
It's my memory.
And you all may not have been here when we did it, though.
That's possible.
Yeah, so it's not saying that they were here when we actually did it.
I didn't hear-
No, it was
I didn't hear the
in
question, I'm sorry.
23
23.
fiscal year, so it was October 2022.
I would not have been here.
Yeah, they didn't come till
You weren't here either.
April, May of 23.
The
car
The
allowance.
car allowance went into effect October 1 of '23. I was presented a PAF. I was not present for any discussions about the car allowance.
In the one-on-one budget meetings. I think that's,
It was not discussed in front of me.
I don't remember it.
We're researching it now.
Do you want me to find them now?
That's all I had.
Yes. Yeah, if we can just find the meeting date. While she's looking for that, is there any other discussion in general about matters that we need to bring before the city commission?
So I brought up a while back about the city clerk position. I'd like to discuss the possibility of the city clerk position being under the commission.
So I did follow up with the chairperson of the Charter Review Committee. I think I also looked at some of the minutes from those committees, and it was discussed
It was.
during charter review. So the citizens at that time said they did not want a city clerk. Charter review is reviewed every 5 years. So we would actually be going against our own policy to, at this point, to try to insert a city clerk into that, because we would have to basically go back and amend the charter, which we said we would review every 5 years. So
We as the commission can't add anything to it to be voted on by the public on the charter. It has to go through the charter review committee.
it's a charter item, so we would need to push it back to the charter review committee, just like we push things to the finance review committee. We would need to push that back to the charter review committee. They've said they've already reviewed it and that they've given us their opinion on
They
it
did.
and that it can be reviewed again in 5 years.
Well, and there was a lot of stuff that needed to be changed, and that was a tough task because it had been quite a long time since it's been updated. You're not gonna get it all in one swack, but now we do it every 5 years, it's gonna help a lot.
Yeah.
But my question is, are we as a commission, we can't have discussion and vote on something, change the charter, unless it goes to the charter review committee.
I would suggest push it to the charter review
Unless
committee.
it goes to a vote.
I know that's true.
Gotta
I
go
don't know
to
what
a
your charter review
referendum.
committee.
Right, it has to go to
requires.
referendum. I get that. But my question is, it has to go to the charter review committee? We can't vote on it?
It doesn't
without-
have to, but I'm saying we've already set a precedent for sending things to the planning board. We've set a precedent for sending things to the finance review committee.
Right.
Things that we're supposed to be doing, we've sent it to those various committees to consider. So if we're looking at something and changing the charter, we have a committee in place, it would just be the protocol that we've already established, which is sending it to the charter review committee. We don't have to, but then why do we send it to all the other committees when we don't have to?
Mm-hmm.
Do have to.
Well,
That one's required, yeah.
so with the finance review committee, we don't have to send things to them.
So it doesn't have to go to the charter review committee.
It doesn't have to.
But what you're saying is it's a good idea since we established. Well, I
Yeah.
get it. I get it.
And when was the charter review committee the last time they met?
A couple of years ago. Actually, they voted on it at the last, when you guys ran,
Yeah,
it, when they
2023.
voted on it, so it was before that.
Yeah, so the next review will come up 2027 or 2026, so that way it will go on the 2027 or 2028 ballot. If there's anything that they would like to change, so the charter said that we reviewed every, because I think before we reviewed it, it might have been maybe nearly 20 years since it had been,
A long time.
reviewed.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And
The
why does it
nightmare.
have to be voted on by the public? I'm just curious. I'm
That's-
educating
That's
myself.
required. When any changes to the charter requires to be voted on by the public.
That's state law.
Yeah, referendum.
So then you don't have a road commission that just changes everything.
Right. That keeps us in check, makes sense.
Well, I don't really consider us rogue, but okay.
Wow, but
Future
I
ones
know,
could be.
I know.
But I get what you're saying. I still would like to discuss it and possibility of adding the city clerk under the commission.
So why do we need a city? I guess I'm just not grasping. Why do we need a city clerk and a commission? What would the role of the city clerk do that we don't already have?
I
someone?
talked about it at the one pre-commission meeting. They pretty much would do a lot of all the clerical type stuff, like the bookkeeping. They wouldn't do finance stuff.
So what books are they keeping if it's not finance?
What's that?
What books are they keeping if it's not finance?
Well, they're doing the bookkeeping, but it was brought up before that they would do all the financial stuff too, and that's not what I'm getting at. I'm not trying to replace like the finance department with the city clerk, because there are cities that do that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. What books are they keeping if it's not
Yeah,
financial?
when you file paperwork, like contracts and development orders and that, they file all those stuff away.
But we have people that do all that already.
Correct. We do.
Right. So
But
I'm
if-
saying so what are we doing? We're adding a position when we already have people doing that job.
You would have to change that. The city would have to change that structure. And there are other cities, it's not the only city that's looks at doing this. Over 40% of the cities are set up like that.
Which means over 60% or not.
No, 52, I think it's 52% are set up the other way. And then there's a few other ones where like really small municipalities, it all falls under the mayor. And then there's another category that makes up the rest of them. So it's not unusual. In fact, Panama City set up that way. Callaway set up that way. I believe Panama City Beach is set up that way. I personally believe, and this is what I brought up before, it creates a good checks and balance with the city. And I brought this up last time, I'll bring it up again. Would you want a city clerk, because a city clerk's in a really good position to know if there's something illegal and ethical going on. And I'm not bringing this up to say there's illegal and ethical stuff going on. It's not why I'm bringing it up. But when we had Michael White, would you rather have a city clerk under the commission that would create the checks and balances in place when things were not going right?
Right.
You know?
Well, let's go with that scenario. Well, if I slide the city clerk something, they're not going to say anything either, no matter who they're accountable to. So it goes back to the integrity of the person, not who they're accountable to. So we can get a city clerk, and then if that happens again, not under this administration, but if it happens under a future administration, if I slide you $50,000, it doesn't matter who you're accountable to, you're not going to say anything. So, I mean, I see what you're saying, but it's not.
I've talked to other city clerks, multiple city clerks, and it took a while, but almost all the ones I talked to, they only know of one way because that's all that they know.
Right.
But I did find like a half a dozen of them that have done both of them. And unanimously, they all told me it's definitely better for the city as a whole when the city clerk is under the commission for that exact reason, because it keeps a good checks and balances in place. If there is some illegal, unethical activity going on, because they are in one of the best positions to know if that's going on. And since they work for us, they would work for us, it would be their responsibility to bring it up to us. And if they didn't, then that's the discussion we would have to have. But it does provide a good checks and balance. Now, would it cost the city some extra money? I'm sure it would. I don't think it's going to be substantial because you're going to have to make some adjustments with manpower, right?
So we would dismiss 5 employees to hire 1.
I didn't say that. Now, if you look at like Panama City, that city clerk has people underneath them. So the city clerk is hired and fired by the city commission, but the employees under that person are city employees. Right? Am I right about that?
I don't know how Panama City does it.
But I mean, have you seen other ones that's how they typically set up? I know Kevin Nobles talked about it last time when we were on pre-commission meeting, and he kind of said that
So
too.
Panama City city clerk is hired by the commission.
Yes.
I know
The
the
same with city clerk. And I want to say Panama City Beach is the same way too.
city clerk of Panama City Beach answers to the commission. She's a charter officer.
So it's not unusual.
I just want to say, I worked for Callaway before I worked here, and they had a city clerk, and the human resource department was under the city clerk. I will say that I heard a lot of arguing between the city clerk and the city manager.
Any other thoughts
I
on
mean, you've
this?
been around, what do you?
You need to remember too, I just want to remind the commission, after Michael White, we put in internal control measures. So that can't happen anymore.
Wow.
But as someone said, if somebody wants to do something nefarious, there's nothing you can do to stop them. And so, but we put those in because you as the director, as commission directed us to do that. And so we put those internal controls in.
Yeah, that's the now, okay? The future is when you're not here, you don't know who's going to take that place.
But they still have to follow the internal controls regardless.
Supposed to.
Just like a
Supposed to.
city clerk would do the same thing,
Right.
supposed to.
Yeah.
So we are about running this city. And I would think not only me or another city manager would have to be jockeying for a position all the time with another person in place trying to run this city. And that's just really where we are. We run a very tight ship. I feel like that the city runs well. We have people with integrity here. We have internal controls in place. Kiki and whoever we hire after her vetted a lot and speak their mind, speak their opinion. And even in our personnel policy, if there is something that the city manager or anybody is doing illegally, they are to go to the attorney. That's what it says in our personnel policy. So there are surely internal controls in place.
I got something to say about it. So, in my job, I work very closely in a scenario like this. And on paper, having a city clerk makes sense. Check and balances is a good thing. But when you have someone that works in for the same company, the city clerk would be under the commission, yes, but they're going to be working with the staff every single day.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it's impossible to keep bias out of it, whether that's negative or positive bias. And with any bias at all, you defeated the whole purpose of having that position in the first place. So the real true way to do it is to have a third party auditor. And that's really the only true way you could get no bias. So I like the idea of checks and balances. That's always a good thing. of my professional opinion, doing this for a living, doesn't work. But when you bring in the human aspect of it, it just doesn't work. If you brought in a robot, awesome idea. But when
You should call those other city clerks and talk to them. And
All right.
city managers, I'm telling you. I get, every city's gonna have their struggles no matter how you set up. But I'm just looking at historically what happened with Lynn Haven, especially the federal indictment. And if the city clerk falls under the city manager, how apt are they gonna come out and say something? They're not unfair of their job. But if they fall under the commission, it's their responsibility. And I get you're not gonna have 100%, you're always gonna have loopholes, right? But I would rather have as much things in place to try to prevent it than not enough.
I just think you have a lot of things in place. We
I didn't say we didn't. I never said we didn't. What I'm saying is, I'm not focusing on the now, focusing on the future.
These policies are gonna be in place when you guys are going.
Yeah, but you're not gonna be here
But-
forever.
but-
And then you have another Michael White, and then we're gonna repeat
Well,
history.
part of that too is that you've inserted into the charter that there's an extensive background search for these department heads and the city manager. You didn't do that the first time, okay? So now you can do that and decide whether or not this person will have integrity just by that extensive background search. So, I mean, I think surely, we can look at the past, but going forward to the future is where we are. We put the things in place you ask us to put in place. We do the background checks on department heads. And at this point, I just don't think this city is big enough, first of all, to have a city clerk and an assistant city manager and be able to run a city where someone doesn't report to the city manager or someone. I just think it creates friction. It creates friction.
You set up the clerk position in CJ and Jennifer and
Jennifer.
Kiki and
Yeah, yes, you're exactly right.
But they all go through the city manager, because the city
I
manager
see
is a
what you're
city
saying
clerk.
too. Yeah, they don't answer to the commission first and foremost.
But then I guess my other question is, we're discussing,
I know Bobby's been in a very long career in city government and several city managers. I just like to hear what the managers say.
Amanda mentioned Callaway,
Yeah.
and she's correct. There was a lot of conflict. I was actually interim city manager at Callaway.
Right.
And there's a lot of conflict and it's personalities. If the city manager and that clerk didn't get along, she's going to the commission. And it was back and forth. So it really depends on who you put in there, but I don't see where it works. I really don't. Because you're over the city manager.
Well, no, the city manager is the city clerk in Lynn Haven.
Right. It's a city manager / clerk, but when you put an additional person in there that doesn't work directly for her, there's a lot of conflicts.
There can be, but you can get that even if you don't set it up that way.
We just don't have time for that. I mean, we have a lot of other problems. And that is,
When- When,
And it's never going to be good.
when Jamie first brought it up, I asked him to give me some time to do some investigating. So I've looked at job descriptions of various clerks, and they vary.
They do.
Some have
It's usually
great
between-
financial.
It's usually whether
Some
they
are
have the
clerical.
financial stuff and the clerical together, or if it's just clerical.
So then I decided to go a step further and talk with mayors and city commissioners. Again, they said they do things all differently. Yeah. But the one thing they all said was, in the eyes of the city that they're in, there was more transparency because of it.
Yep.
So that is the only consistent thing that was said in the different people that I talked to mayors, city commissioners, and I talked to Callaway, and so I have mixed feelings on this.
Yeah, I'm on the Bay County League of Cities, and
Yeah.
I talk to them all the time.
Yeah. So right now I think we have in place some precautions that hopefully that would never happen again, what happened in the past. But, like you said, we're not always going to be here.
But I do like
Jeez.
Commissioner Peoples' internal control solution. I don't mind the third auditor coming in and someone looking at anything and everything. I mean, I don't mind that at all. It takes out the filling, it takes out the relationship, and they're just coming in and looking at all of the things that are going on. But these folks have the option, if there is something wrong, they have the option to come to any commissioner and talk to any commissioner. You see the checks before they're written. That used to not be. So I just think you put in place everything that needs to be, and just thinking not only for me but future city managers just doing this job, second largest city in Bay County. They don't have time for other conflicts.
And I guess as we're discussing city clerk, so we're talking about adding another position, which would then add more to the budget, but we're reluctant to consider a pay increase for our current city manager. That perplexes me a little bit as well. We're going to add another $100,000 position, but sort of reluctant to consider an increase for our current city manager.
Well, first of all, we were just simply discussing the clerk, and no one has said that they were against any raise.
I didn't say that we were, but I'm saying there was silence when we discussed it. So there's some reluctancy. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. I'm just, since we're having discussion, and we're having discussion. So we're looking at wanting to add a $100,000 position, but reluctant to give merit to the person that's already in the position. So that's all I'm saying.
I didn't really get the vibe of reluctance, though.
So
I didn't,
I get it, we didn't get the vibe of reluctance, but no one, other than saying, let's go back and look at old contracts, let's go back and look at other things. What is our current city manager doing now? So I'm not.
We're very lucky with our current city manager. I don't think there's anybody at the table that's, says we're not. We're all,
I'm not pointing, listen, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. I'm just making.
transparency she's brought to the city from the previous city manager tenfold.
So I'm just making a statement of, if we're concerned about budgets and those type of things, we're talking about adding more to our budget. All right. So around the table, Sam, you want to add city clerk discussion to the agenda?
What would be the agenda item? Like, would it just be a discussion? Would it be?
I mean, we're discussing it now, but I mean, it would be discussion, possible approval to amend the upcoming charter for city clerk.
And then if that got approved, what would happen?
It would go on the ballot,
We would have to pay for it to go on the ballot.
but we would line it up for the election. We'd have to have it in by.
how much is
Creating a position that three people and that's already held.
Yeah.
With cohesiveness versus.
I mean, the work is already, so we're not hiring a person to do the work because the work is already being done.
I get- To answer your question, my thought process is I never want to prevent something from being added to the agenda. So if we want to add it, sure. I personally don't, like I said, from my personal and professional experience, it doesn't work. Not where what I do it every day and it doesn't work. So I'm not, I like the check and balances. I like third party auditors. That's what works. So, yeah.
May I add a comment? So if you're looking at a clerk and it's a ministerial position, which is being done now, and you're expecting that person to be able to report nefarious acts, they would have to have the whole knowledge of the city manager and all the departments. That's a big duty. That's why I think the city manager has invested some time with me and her directors in order for us to be specialists and to know what we're bringing forward, and that we're following policies. A ministerial role is taking the record, recording the record, and filing the record. Much different than what I hear smatterings of things. I'm not sure what this position is supposed to be and how to categorize it. So that's a place you all would have to decide.
We're just
If you do
discussing.
this, what does it mean to be a clerk for the city, and what roles and responsibilities does that entail?
Yeah, that's
Because that's going to drive what sets up that office, the cost of the office, and that cost of that position.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Ms. Vandergrift,
What, sir?
for this to be an agenda item for discussion and possible approval to look at amending the charter for a city clerk.
Are you asking how I would vote, or do I
No, is
want
there
it on
something
the
that you- is
agenda?
there something you
No,
want
I
to
don't want it on the agenda. I wanted to discuss it. I wanted to say that I told Warwick that I would look into it, and I have.
Okay. Commissioner Perno,
If Commissioner Ward feels strongly and wants it on the agenda to discuss, I don't want to stop him from, his feelings for that to be an agenda item. But if you're gonna make it an agenda item and you're gonna vote, I mean, I don't play poker professionally, but I can read the room already and vote, the vote wouldn't pass. So why would we waste anybody's time by making it an agenda item? That's how I feel about it, but,
We have brought things
we've discussed it.
forward
We've
as
talked it.
discussion,
We've
and
talked
I'm
about
not
it.
opposed to an open discussion.
And I'm not opposed to taking it to the podium in a meeting and having discussion and to go from there. And if a motion comes and dies, a motion comes and dies, it's fine. But
Yeah, I mean, that's
when
fair. I
we're
don't want-
we're sitting here talking about it, and I already know the position's held by 3 current people. I don't see any conflicts with talking to any of those 3 people, answering to any one of us commissioners. I think we all know everybody and what they're doing. That's my feelings. But if the man wants an agenda item, let's give him an agenda item. So, because I'm sure as hell gonna ask for one here in a second. So
Commissioner Ward, what would you like for your agenda? How would you like for your agenda item to read?
Discussion and possible approval as city clerk under the commission.
All right. Commissioner Perno, you said you had something you wanted to discuss?
yes, I do, and I want to try to articulate this in a timeline, and it's already been brought to y'all's attention, but I feel really strongly about this, and we've already voted, and we voted for Mott McDonald, and we voted $3.5 million for engineering for the Headworks project for our water treatment.
Not just the headworks, Commissioner, that's for the entire expansion design.
Expansion of Headworks.
Correct. The headworks and the influent pump station was designed back in 2019, 2020 by Mont and Panhandle, and I don't know the cost of that design. That was before my time, but that part is designed. The $3.5 million is for the entire expansion.
Right, but we've voted that money forward, right?
Yes.
Since then, we have a vulnerability study in motion, and it's almost completed. The vulnerability study will show that the water treatment plant on the water's edge in Lynn Haven would be it will show in a certain type of storm, it won't exist anymore. Anybody in their right mind would say, it doesn't need to be in that location if you were going to build another one today. Okay. The county has, on and off over the years, Bobby, Chris, they've come to Lynn Haven. There's a plant up on 388 across from the Florida Co-op up there, where you turn left to go to the airport. If you turn right,
Is that Edwards Road?
yeah, I think it's in operation right now, but it can be expanded to encompass the entire area, because the growth of that area is going to happen, and that's the water treatment plant for that. It's been offered before, and the city manager has already spoke and had a meeting with county manager. Okay. It's in the works to possibly close our water sewer treatment plant and pump up to that plant up there. Okay. And in doing that, we'll have to pay the county. We'll have to go on county rates. We won't any longer be Lynn Haven, it won't be a Lynn Haven utility anymore, but we'll go on county rates. Everything will go up there, but Lynn Haven will become the collector of the retail for that area. That means that we'll not only collect the Lynn Haven residents, we'll all have to go on county rates. The residents who are on county rates will still be billed by Lynn Haven. It's what I understand. Okay.
Can I just point a correction there? So the feasibility study
Right.
will
There's-
show what rates will be, so we wouldn't necessarily go on county rates.
Right, it could be less,
that's
because we're
exactly
adding
right.
20,000 people. When you add
That's
20,000 people to something that has a fixed cost anyway,
That's
you can create a less cost. It might work out to be the same as Lynn Haven rates, but they won't be Lynn Haven rates because it's a county-owned facility. So it'll be, we'll still be collecting, we'll still be pulling in, but that's one of the things that hinge on this, is that the rate study has to be done, and city manager's in negotiation with the county on that, and she's, I believe, going to work with Bob after the holidays, but I would like to make a formal agenda item that we're tracking this and we're tasking the city manager, so it's something that we're pursuing versus the $50 million project. If we can close one, and the county would be co-oping with us on increasing the headworks and whatnot. This is all, it's like, this is all in negotiation right now. We're still sitting on the fact that we're going to have to do that based on consent orders and whatnot.
So regardless, we have to upgrade our wastewater plant, whether we expand this current plant or we go into the county and let the county provide wholesale sewer treatment to us. We still will be a Lynn Haven utility. We still have water and sewer rates. We still have water and sewer bills. Basically, in the simple terms, there's a huge flow meter that will be on the force main that every month the county sends us a bill based on that meter for what amount of sewer we sent in that treatment plant. However, like Commissioner Perno said, the vulnerability assessment in 2080, I believe it is, if everything goes with sea level rise, other environmental conditions, the treatment plant existing could be underwater. So we need to face the point of, do we spend $51 million, and that's an estimate, on expanding this plant, or do we abandon the expansion? Do we build an influent pump station that's already designed and go in together with the county, let them treat our wastewater, we pay the wholesale rates? Now, of course, our rates are going to increase regardless, whether we have a $51 million bond or we go on the county because the county's gonna have to pay their bond on expanding the wastewater plant. However, the rate study will take everyone into consideration, the current Lynn Haven customer base and the county base, and basically spread that cost amongst all of those users. There's also a bunch of development proposed in Bay County. You have several thousand homes from the Teachy Trail subdivisions, the potential
And
sod
by-
farm subdivisions,
Yep.
and all the future tie-ins on Edwards Road.
Postman's in,
But if that is something we are going to do, keep in mind, we still have a consent order coming that we've discussed for about a year now. We have not received that yet, so we do not know what the consent order will be.
That's a bad thing.
But we will have to do something to our wastewater plant to expand any capacity, whether it's this one or moving north.
So what would the time frame be,
It,
to
So,
confirm all of this?
well, and that's kind of what we need some direction on, which is, I mean, Commissioner Perna has a valid point on an agenda item. January, we can fast track our design through Mott McDonald and get a design done for our plant by the end of the year and be ready to bid out. Now, in that year, you all have to decide, do you want to do an SRF loan for $50 million? Do you want to bond it? How do you want to do that? Or we can take some direction and go do the feasibility study like we're going to do with the county, kind of pause the design until that is complete, and then look at the feasibility for rates as a whole in Bay County and go up to the North Bay plant.
And that is where we were actually
right.
go.
And the reason I'm asking for an agenda item and a vote, and you know, and she's not doing it. She's not kicking the can. We're just making it official that we're doing this, so we can show DEP we're serious about this. This is on the horizon, and it will in turn either alleviate or soften our consent order. I'm hoping, but because when they can look at, oh, you have two water treatment plants, you're going to close one and operate. That's a great thing environmentally. I mean, they will say you're thinking ahead, and I really think it can offset consent order. I mean, it's a
Well,
possibility.
surely it's a
It won't
possibility
offset.
in terms of, I talked to Elizabeth Orr
Yes.
a lot. And she actually called me on that, wanted to know where we were in that process.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we're going to be asking the legislative appropriation for is $1 million to do this study. If that doesn't happen, then we're going to be try to partner with the county to utilize their vendor they already have in place. I think it's Raptalis, if I'm not mistaken, and be able to still move forward either way. So we have been working behind the scenes. You're absolutely
Yes,
right,
and,
Commissioner Perna.
Jessica Graham with the St. Joe Bay, St. Andrew Bay Estuary Program, and Daryl Boudreau with the Northwest Florida Water Management District are, you know, I wouldn't have this knowledge without, and Chris Lightfoot, of course, Bobby and Keith Bryant. I mean, these talks have been going on for a while now, and it was at the point where, you know, the county was going to give it to us, we were going to take it over, this or that, whatever. But it's come to now where we're faced with this huge, you know, $50 million, and you won't expand it anymore after this. After this $50 million in Headwards project, the next increase to that water treatment plant is to close it and build another one, pretty much, right? I mean, you won't, and that's many years down the road too. So, but this one up here is expandable and can handle the whole area and stuff.
Estimated cost
We become the retail provider.
For the county,
for us to move from one,
so you're looking at about a $10 million force main pump station. Again, preliminary numbers, we don't know, but about a $10 million pump station to get the sewer to the North Bay plant. Then the county will have to expand that plant around $50 million as well. We won't have the bond for the $50 million. However, our rates will be based upon the bond that Bay County takes, or an SRF loan, or however they finance it.
And then not only that, the other benefit is we've always, I think there's been a question about what's going to happen out in Southport. And this could be good opportunity for Lynn Haven to expand.
Lynn Haven to provide services that makes us unannexed.
Now,
We also wouldn't have to pay employees to run the plant, right? That would be on the county.
And our current employees would be employed at there.
So, and that is a challenge in itself currently throughout the state of Florida. Wastewater operators are hard to find. We are having a hard time staffing the plant with licensed wastewater operators. So that burden would be removed from the city for licensed operators. However, we would need additional employees to maintain the sewer collection and water distribution systems in that area. Now, the county would need less employees, so this way down the road, and this would be part of the feasibility and the rates of, would employees transfer from the county to the city or from the city to the county?
We need to have it stated in the form of an agenda item. So the people who are forming the consent order, Elizabeth Orr, when they see it's on the docket on a city meeting and what we vote on to get behind, even though, I mean, we're fighting two fronts in a way, but the best case scenario at the end would be to do that. And then potentially, we become the retail provider for the whole area. That has to be contracted out with the county. But think about our, if that wastewater plant's gone, there's potential grants for converting them. Pensacola and other areas that have, done away with their wastewater treatment plant. I mean, what do you think the Wahoo's
The Blue Wahoo Stadium.
Blue Wahoo
If
Stadium
anybody's been over there, that used to be the wastewater
treatment
plant.
plant for Pensacola was.
I did not know that.
Yes.
makes sense, it's on the water right there.
Right,
Yeah.
and they had a water treatment plant on the water, and they knew from their feasibilities and whatnot to close it, and they
That would definitely help with our
and well,
costs for
I
Kennesaw
mean,
Park.
we potentially want an amphitheater one day there and stuff like that. That would and that leads into other grants when you convert something like that to to something better to improve your community. There's grants out there there's pots of money out there.
Yeah. And our growth will be up, because
Lynn.
right now, we don't have any growth to the west or the east. Our growth would be north. And so that's one of the things we've been talking to the county about. So you are just wanting to, discussion and approval to task the city manager with moving forward with.
And if Chris can talk like he just did, you know what I mean, to let the public know
and
where we're at, you know what I mean? So
Is there any downside to this?
sharpen up a little bit.
I guess the downside is the
Downside.
controls, I guess.
Any downside is, I mean, at the end of the day, we become the county's customer. I mean, we lose control of a wastewater plant. But if it was,
But we
if it was
lose
an
control
option
of
today, I
of
would give up control of the wastewater plant before we left
Yeah.
here today, if possible.
And I think we are to do business with the county
Anyway.
with
Yeah,
water
and that
stuff.
will also take away the need for us to expand our reuse system because it would no longer be our
Oh, yeah.
liability.
They're going to reuse right back to us.
Well, potentially. I mean, not necessarily. We may lose our reuse altogether, which is fine. We can convert all of that to potable and sell the irrigation. That's not an issue.
Now, one question would be, let me say I'm for this, as further discussion as an agenda item. But one of my questions is if we decide to go this route in the future, what happens to our $3 million that we've already obligated to Mott McDonald?
So we haven't spent that. I mean, we've
We
only spent
transitioned.
about $30,000 or $40,000. I'd have to go back and see. But that had to be done anyway for our permit renewal. Our permit expires next August, and we had to have an application submitted by August 31st of this
Give
year,
them other work,
or we would
Okay.
They won't
be out of compliance. So regardless, we had to spend that money.
Right, and the county, if we tell the county we had engineers under contract, they can,
That would be an Amy question of could we convert that task order to that, because the RFQ was based on
she's
ours.
right.
I'll review it.
Because like, would they be the ones that actually do the,
So that would be, the county would be responsible now for hiring an engineer.
To do the
Whether we
pump.
could transfer our contract to the county,
Yes.
that would be an
And they
attorney
really
question.
want to get out of the retail business. They love wholesale, but they don't want to get out of the retail business. So the county will kind of be the driver. They're all in. We've had our initial meeting and we have talked with them. So really what we're asking for, and their direction was us, is first of all, you got to see what those rates would be if we did this transition, first of all, which that means that's a feasibility study for, first and foremost.
So the agenda item could be about the feasibility study.
So
Prioritize
we've got to find that funding to make that happen. And also, if not, then we need to move forward with working with the county and their vendor to do, to ensure that we do this study, because their vendors, Raf Tillis. And so we would need to make sure that those two things in place to move forward.
So I guess, we would still be looking at maybe 6 months down the road before we'd actually bring this back again. Because if we're talking about waiting on legislative funding, which is, I'm for that.
We wanna move on it.
Well, I'm saying, if we're talking about legislative funding, we gotta wait until legislation meets and approves.
Well, and that would probably need to be part of the agenda item is, what do you want to direct staff to do? Because we are moving forward with a design currently. So if it's the commission desire to
can
put
we
this
use-
as a priority, then we would need an agenda item to
Right.
either pause the design, delay the design, or
Yeah, we
put it on
do.
hold until the results are finished.
We need to get the cost of what the study would be. Would we be able to get with the county and
I can
Get a
get with
projection.
county and get a projection there.
that's kind of where the way the
Yeah,
agenda item.
because if you
because the
know-
priority is getting this feasibility rate study
Yeah.
done.
But
So, but we got to find out how much it costs. We can't just wait around for we'll swing at appropriation, but let's get a dollar amount on what it is and go. If we don't get appropriation, we still got to move on this.
No, and I think we do, and that was our understanding with the county, whether we get that or not. But that was their first direction to us, is to go
And I
that
guess I'm
route.
just saying, we won't know
Right.
what we're gonna be able to do financially until we get yes or
We
no
got
for the
it.
appropriation.
We got to know. We got to know how much it costs to do the
Yeah,
study. We
as you
still don't
just,
know that.
just to
right?
gauge, Panama City got about $2 million. And I don't know how much of that they've spent on their feasibility study.
So they did not spend all of the 2 million, to my understanding, and speaking with Jared. They got the $2 million. That also included a vulnerability assessment of their wastewater plant. Ours is already done,
Ours
so we
is
just
done.
have to do the rate study. Now, the agenda item could be direct staff to get
Direct
an
city
estimate from the county on change ordering into their Raftellus contract, what it would take to do it, then the city could pay the county directly if we wanted to do it before legislative appropriation was approved or denied.
And if I'm also hearing you saying we would need a separate agenda item to pause the design on the current headworks, if we're looking in this
My
direction.
opinion, and I would defer to the city managers, if you want to do that, then we would like a direction from the commission on pausing that we could present to DEP and show where we're at versus just us putting it on hold. It would be better if we had some direction from the commission.
Got it.
So there's really two agenda items.
I think we should get both agenda items on this agenda so we can get moving
City management.
and show. We need to show all parties involved. The county, we need to show DEP. We need to show them that we're serious about this.
Because DP, Elizabeth does know that we are pursuing that.
Right. She knows it, but when they see it, and when you see it on paper, or when you see it, a vote from us, it goes out. They know what we're doing.
Yeah. So I can write up some things and then,
Commissioner Peebles, any objections to adding these?
No.
Commissioner Vandergriff,
No,
Commissioner Ward? All right.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Yeah, you're.
I'll write that out.
I have just one quick question. How is our working relationship with Bay County?
It's awesome.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
And
That's
that
what
is
I wanted to
something
hear.
new.
This is a situation where the county does what they do good, and Lynn Haven will do what we do good. We already have customer service billing available. And it would be a bigger, more customers for them and whatnot, but they can handle it.
And I will tell you too, that was not always the case. We had to
Oh,
rebuild
yeah.
with,
Oh, yeah.
And I do know
yes.
after every time there's a storm that's coming this way, they always reach out and call me and say, hey, anything you need, let us know. We're here to help. We'll send whatever trucks we need to send out, so it's a very, very good supportive relationship. Even when we went to legislation last year, when we went, to petition for our funds, Bob Michael was there, I was there, we were all talking. I don't think the county got anything last year. But he was a team player to say, hey, at least something is coming to Bay County.
Their lobbyist is our lobbyist, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Keep in mind too, the assistant county manager is
Yeah,
a former
Joel-
city, so he understands the dynamic of the city.
Yeah,
already.
Joel's a Lynn Haven
Yeah.
guy. Joel
Yeah.
Schubert was our city manager. Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, time is wrapping up, so a couple of quick questions. Oh, go ahead.
You want me to do the update on the golf cart thing?
Yes, that's all. That was going to be one of those. So that's one of the two. So yes. you go ahead
Okay.
with
Bobby,
that.
would you come give an update on the golf cart, where we are with that?
All right, the golf cart crossing, we verbally met with DOT. There's 3 of them they may consider, but they're not committing. Virginia and 390, 17th and 77, 24th and 77. All 3 of them have traffic lights.
Yep.
What they want is a full-blown engineering study of it, which is $15,000. We didn't budget that. It's not in this amended budget, so. And there's absolutely no guarantee they'll approve them, but they're willing to look at them again. So,
In the past, they have not even been willing to look at it, and
Yeah.
Bobby's been working really hard to try to get them to even look at additional golf cart crossings. So that's where we are
like I said,
now.
they'll only consider traffic lights. So the intent was to get people to the larger supermarkets. The Virginia one would get the west side over to the Winn-Dixie area. 24th Street would get them to the Publix. And 17th would get them to Winn-Dixie. So,
I think 24th would be a tough one.
yeah,
It's gonna be tough.
24th, they're not
This
happy
will
about
already
it.
have that intersection with traffic issues already.
It's gonna be tough.
It's right there.
What were the other two?
17th and 77 by McDonald's over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Virginia, where the new light is on 390.
Okay.
I guess that'd at least get them to win Dixie. If they do 17th, that'll get people to win Dixie. But yeah, that 24th would take them right to the intersection. Okay. All right. Thank you for working on that. Thanks for
But
that.
like I said, it's not in the current budget to do it.
So we would have to actually vote on that to
Yes.
approve the engineering study because we have to amend the budget for that.
Want to make that an agenda item?
Is that something we want to discuss further on Tuesday?
I've had several requests from citizens to have more
Golf cart crossing.
Yeah. me
more
too.
crossings.
All right. Commissioner
Have you,
Peebles?
Jane? Had many requests?
Just trying to get out of Wood Highlands, man. All I can do is go to Dollar General right now.
That's probably one of the top requested things that I get.
Yeah.
So everybody okay with adding that to the agenda for discussion and possible approval regarding the engineering?
If you want to do it, you can add it to this
Yeah, that's what they've
current
just.
budget you're trying to amend.
Yeah. Okay. And then, thank you. And then the second question was in regards to we've all received emails, follow-up emails from the landings. We had a citizen that came and made a request a few months ago, probably in the summer, regarding lowering the speed limit in the landings from 25 to 15. We did direct city staff or the traffic committee to go and do a study on that. I followed up with the city manager to see the results of that study. So if you could, so average miles per hour was, I think the median was 26 and the average was around 20.
Yeah, it was long.
And so the recommendation from the committee was to not lower it from 25 to 15. And so that, again, I know she's reached out to all of us, so just sharing that with you before I followed up to say this is,
She came to a meeting.
yeah. So that's the results of that.
It did not work. Anything done.
Yeah.
Where are we as far as Mowat Highlands?
I'm just waiting until the new year to conduct a new, we
Oh, we're
voted to
waiting
conduct
for
a
the
new
new
study.
year.
Yeah, they would. Not rev them up before Christmas. I do know, I think, police have been out monitoring speeding. So I do know that. So that has brought a little more alertness for people to, hopefully to slow down in the area. You don't want to get a ticket.
Nothing incentivizes like money.
That is true. So that's all the extra that I had. See y'all on Tuesday, meeting adjourned.